You're watching the Knox Pages.
You are watching the Knox Pages.
You're watching the Knox Pages Game of the Week.
Welcome into this week's edition of the Knox Pages Game of the Week. My name is Grant Pepper. I'm a reporter at KnoxPages.com. It is week 4. It is finally time for conference action as all 5 Knox County teams will head into conference play this week after 3 weeks of non-conference play. Our Game of the Week will feature 2 teams that tied for the first ever Knox-Morrow Athletic Conference Championship last season. It's going to be Highland at Danville right out here at Tough Street Stadium in Danville, Ohio on Friday night, a battle of local heavyweights. Before we get to that matchup, though, let's take you around Knox County to see what happened last week in Knox County High School football. In week 3, our game of the week was East Knox versus Strasburg Franklin, and boy, that turned into a blowout early. East Knox won that game 68-6, improving to 3-0 after leading 40-6 at halftime and never looking back. East Knox was led by junior quarterback Caden Lester. He threw for 325 yards last week and 3 touchdowns on 10 of 14 passing. Senior tailback Kason Cranapple ran for 76 yards and 4 scores. East Knox tallied 530 total yards of offense on Friday night while holding the Strasburg Franklin Tigers to just 68. Most of East Knox yardage came in the first half as the clock ran pretty much the entire second half. Mount Vernon beat Buckeye Valley 20-10. The Yellow Jackets won their second straight thriller last Friday night at Energy Field. They outscored the Barons 13-0 in the fourth quarter to seal the victory. Mount Vernon improved to 2-1. They are led by tailback Ashton Fisher, who ran the ball 17 times for 121 yards, caught 4 passes for 54 yards last Friday night. Fellow running back Wyatt Gregory ran for 68 yards on 23 carries, and QB Noah Hubbard threw for 111 yards on 9 of 20 passing to spearhead that balanced Yellow Jacket attack. Centerbrook shut out Northwest Johnstown in their home opener last Friday night, surrendering just 146 total yards in that ball game. They led 6-0 at halftime, but the Trojans came out firing in the second half. They scored twice in the third quarter and kept the Vikings off the scoreboard in the second half again to secure that victory. Centerbrook sophomore QB John Chisby accounted for all 4 Centerbrook touchdowns on Friday night, throwing for 1 and running for 3. He finished with 253 rushing yards on 22 attempts and 57 passing yards on 5 of 9 passing. Tailback Donnell Marshall tallied 102 yards for the Trojans, while Stephen Schmidt anchored the defense with 7.5 tackles. Centerbrook held Northwest Johnstown to just 146 total yards of offense, while the Trojans recorded 372 yards themselves. Danville, a team you'll hear about more in this week's edition of the Knox Pages Game of the Week, fell in a heartbreaker last week right here at home at Tough Street Stadium, 29-28 in overtime to Garaway. Danville fell to 0-3 with the loss. The Blue Devils sent the game into overtime with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to tie the game at 21 with 15 seconds left in regulation. It was a close game the whole way through. Danville received the ball first in overtime, and the Blue Devils scored on a touchdown and kicked an extra point to take a 7-point lead. But Garaway stunned the Tough Street Stadium crowd with a gutsy decision in its next drive to take over. The Pirates scored a touchdown on their offensive possession in overtime, but decided to go for 2 and go for the win instead of playing it safe by kicking an extra point. Down by 1, Garaway converted the 2-point conversion on a 3-yard pass to the end zone, and the Pirates beat the Devils in walk-off fashion on the road. Danville QB Dalton David threw for 139 yards on 15 of 20 passing on Friday night, while tailback Chris Greenawalt led the Blue Devils in rushing with 111 yards on 25 carries. The Blue Devils dropped to 0-3 with the loss. Fredericktown lost again on Friday night, 38-22 to Utica. They were blanked in the middle course as Utica earned their first win of the season at Fredericktown. After going toe-to-toe with the Redskins in the first quarter, Fredericktown could not keep up with Utica in the middle course as the Redskins outscored the Frays 24-0 during that time. That span separated the Redskins from the Frays on Friday night as the score was tied at 14 after 1 quarter. Utica capitalized on big plays last Friday, including an 80-yard touchdown completion and a 35-yard rushing score, which helped put the game out of reach for the Freddies. All 3 of Fredericktown's scores came from quarterback Terry Fern, as he passed for 1 touchdown and ran for 2 more. Fern went 8 of 16 through the air for 87 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 pick. Tailback John Robbins led the Freddies in rushing with 167 yards on 19 carries. Fredericktown dropped to 0-3 with the home loss last Friday night. And that takes us to week 4, our game of the week. Highland at Danville this week. Sure to be an intense physical matchup between two KMAC Blue Bloods right out here in Danville on Friday night. While these two schools had scrimmaged each other in past years, they started playing for real last season as KMAC opponents. Highland proved to be Danville's only loss last regular season as the Fighting Scots won the game handily on their home turf in week 4, 26-0. Highland would go on to lose to Northmore in week 10 that season, creating a tie between Danville and Highland for the first ever Knox Athletic Conference title, as both teams had one conference loss last season, finishing at 6-1. Both teams would go on to qualify for the state playoffs in 2017. Circumstances are a little different heading into this year's Highland-Danville matchup, though. Danville comes into conference play still winless at 0-3, while Highland's riding high on a 2-game win streak. They approach week 4 with a record of 2-1. This is Danville's worst start to a season since 2009, when they went 0-6 and eventually finished the season at 2-8, missing the state playoffs. The Blue Devils have made the state playoffs 7 straight seasons. That streak is in jeopardy already this season with their 0-3 start. And for a program that's made the state semifinals 2 out of the last 3 seasons, Danville is in a rather unusual place to start the 2018 season.
Well, we've definitely seen some adversity. It's been a long time since we've been 0-3 to start the season off. So, but the kids have come to work. They've been working hard still. We're just trying to keep getting better every week.
Now, on top of some serious roster changeover from last season, Danville's had a brutal non-conference schedule. The 3 teams they've played so far this year have combined for an 8-1 record currently, and their schedule doesn't get any easier into conference play. They face Highland this week, who's 2-1, and Northmore next week, who began the season at 3-0. At this point, the pressure's on for a Danville team who's beginning the season at 0-3. And 15th-year head coach Ed Honebarger knows there's only one way to get it off.
We take that pressure off by winning a game. And it don't get any easier, obviously, with Highland coming in. But yeah, there's some pressure. But right now, we should be in sort of a mode where we don't have anything to lose. You know what I mean? Let's get out there, let's play loose and play fast and have fun.
Now, Highland presents a unique challenge for the Blue Devils as the Fighting Scots feature a 4 running back rushing attack and a physical defense that aims to wear teams down.
Oh, they're really good, like they have been. Experienced team. They're going to pound the fullback, big offensive line. Then Veely's going to hit with the sweeps and the wingback traps. Aggressive defense. They bring people that come after you. So typical Highland football team, well coached. So they present, a lot of problems.
Honebarger says a team tackling approach will be key for the Blue Devils on Friday night. Last week, Highland's 4 running backs rushed for 449 total yards. 2 of them averaged more than 10 yards per carry in the team's 41-8 win over River Valley.
Well, we need to be able to get people gang tackle. We obviously don't want their line to lean in and golf on us. We got to move around and get people to the back, because he averages probably 8 or 9 yards a carry. So we definitely got to gang tackle him.
On offense, senior quarterback Dalton David emphasized ball control this week for the Blue Devils against Highland. He also know the importance of Friday night's game. And yes, Danville is still searching for that first win, so it's important in that aspect. But also, Danville will need to beat teams like Highland if they want to have a chance at winning a KMAC title this season.
They're pretty big, a lot bigger than us. But I don't know, if we play like last week, we keep control of the ball, I think we can do some damage. So it's a big week. We want to beat Highland. We think that we can beat Highland. So, they haven't been in the last couple of years, so it'd be nice to get a W this year.
Meanwhile, out in Marengo, the Highland Scots have rebounded from a 22-point loss in Week 1 to Bloom Carroll to win their last 2 games in blowout fashion by 31 over Ontario in Week 2 and by 33 last week against River Valley. 16th-year head coach Chad Carpenter believes that shift came when his team got back to its roots.
I think we went back to our basics a little bit, started running the ball a little bit more than we did the first game, and tried to establish that run and more physical style play, which seems to suit our kids more. I think that's the biggest difference that we've done.
Both Carpenter and senior running back Brock Veely believe that the reason the team's 4 running back system has worked so far this season is because of the trust built up between the backs themselves.
I think it's one of those things that they all trust each other, and we have a Coach Duncan rotates those guys really well, and we try to keep them all fresh throughout the game.
We just all care about each other. I mean, if you're not getting the ball, you're blocking for the next person. I mean, we don't really look at the stats as long as we come out with a victory, because we all love each other, so we're all like best friends. So whoever gets the ball, we're so excited for them.
Carpenter said that Danville represents an interesting challenge for the Scots on Friday night, given their history of offensive creativity.
Oh, they give us a lot of different looks, you know, some spread looks to try to isolate you, and also some power looks with some unbalanced things. And you know, it's one of those things where they flip back and forth and you know, try to cause some mismatches and package issues. So you know, it's one of those things that we have to be ready. The kids have to recognize what's going on and get us in the right defense.
And Brock Veely told me that his veteran ball club knows better than to overlook Danville for its 0-3 start.
We just have to respect every opponent. I mean, 0-3 is just, you can throw out all the records, because you know we're going to get their A game because they want us and we want them. So we just have to go and hit a dog fight and just give it our all, because you know they're going to fight for it, because they're used to winning and they just want to win just like we do.
With KMAC play beginning on Friday night, Highland knows that this first step is a crucial one in getting back to the conference's mountaintop this season.
It's really big. You know, it's one of those things that you know, we don't look ahead, we don't jump, you know, ahead on our schedule at all. It's one of those things that, you know, we have to get out to a good start to put us in competition here for the KMAC championship.
Brock Veely told me that a higher level of focus will be required of his team this season, given that a target will be on their backs during conference play. Like many others, Brock Veely said that the KMAC will be highly competitive again in 2018.
That's very important, because everybody's coming for us, so we just have to trust ourselves, and just conference is always fun, because you know kids from other schools, so you can text them and give them all kinds of crap, but they're like your friends off the field and on the field. So it's just very competitive, and there's numerous teams that it's going to be competitive this year.
Highland at Danville, your Week 4 Knox Pages game of the week will kick off right here at Tough Street Stadium in Danville at 7 p.m. on Friday night. As always, you can find our game recap later that night on our website at knoxpages.com. Before we get into more of this week's county matchups, let's take you around the county to look at each team as they head into conference play this week. The East Knox Bulldogs are Knox County's last undefeated team. They have a record of 3-0 after beating West Muskingum in Week 1, 55-2, Utica in Week 2, 51-10, and Strasburg-Franklin last week, 68-6. One big stat for the Bulldogs this season: they have outscored their opponents 122-16 in the first half, so they are getting out to big leads early and holding on. Caden Lester leads the team in passing yards with 435 on 30 of 42 passing from the QB spot. He has 8 touchdowns this year and 0 interceptions. Running back Cason Crownapple has 25 carries for 360 yards on the ground this year. That's 14.4 yards per carry. He also has 12 touchdowns. Next up, Mount Vernon. The Yellow Jackets have a 2-1 record so far this season. They lost to Marion Harding 21-12 in a heartbreaker in Week 1, but then went on to beat Newark 41-27 and Buckeye Valley last week 20-10. Two games that were kind of thrillers. They were down 10-0 to Newark in Week 2 and came back and won, and they were down 10-7 heading into the fourth quarter last week against Buckeye Valley and came back to win that game as well. Yellow Jackets are led this season so far by running back Ashton Fisher, who has 40 carries for 309 yards. That's 7.7 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. Linebacker Harry Ogle anchors the Yellow Jacket defense. He has 35 tackles and 2 sacks so far this year. Centerburg has a record of 2-1, and they have a chance this week to surpass last week's win total, and it's just Week 4. They beat Utica in Week 1, 28-14. They lost to Lucas in Week 2, 42-14, and then they beat Northridge Johnstown last week, 27-0. They're led by quarterback John Shisby. He's 24-44 for 231 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He also has 378 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Running back Donnell Marshall leads him on the ground with 32 carries for 247 yards. That's 7.7 yards per carry and 2 scores. The Danville Blue Devils, as we just mentioned, are 0-3. They lost to Lucas in Week 1, 22-0. They lost to Tiffin Calvert, 3-0 team, 39-21 in Week 2. And then last week they lost to another 3-0 team in Garaway, 29-28 in overtime. Running back Chris Greenewalt leads the team with 48 carries for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns, while senior Wide receiver Corbin Hazen has 15 catches for 180 yards. That's 12 yards per catch and 2 scores. First-year starting QB Dalton David has quietly gotten better each week. You saw him in our Highland-Danville game preview there. He was a key figure in the Blue Devils' Week 3 comeback. That wasn't quite enough. The loss to Garraway last week. He threw for 139 yards on 15 of 20 passing on Friday night, and he accounted for 3 of Danville's 4 touchdowns, including 2, which he ran in himself. He sent the game into overtime last week on a 15-yard touchdown run on a 4th and goal from the 15 with 15 seconds left in regulation. Things are certainly beginning to come together for the Danville Blue Devils, and just at the right time as they head into conference play this week. And finally, Fredericktown. They have a 0-3 start to the 2018 season after losing to Clear Fork in Week 1, 63-0, Pleasant in Week 2, 43-7, and Utica last week, 38-22. Quarterback Terry Fern leads the team on 23 of 43 passing for 121 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 picks through the first 3 weeks. He has 42 rushes for 158 yards and 1 touchdown as well. Running back John Robbins has 29 rushes for 94 yards this season and 2 scores. Fredericktown has a chance to start over anew this week as they begin conference play and potentially shock the KMAC world if they were to hang on to beat Northmore, a 3-0 team, on Friday night. Now let's jump into this week's Knox County High School football matchups, a slate which features all but Mount Vernon playing at home. In Week 4, as you know, Highland plays at Danville. Highland 2-1, Danville 0-3 coming into Week 4. That is our Knox Pages game of the week, a 7 p.m. kickoff. Highland beat Danville last year 26-0, and it should be a good one out here at Tough Street Stadium in Week 4 this year on Friday night. Mount Gilead goes to East Knox. Mount Gilead 0-3 so far this season. East Knox, of course, undefeated at 3-0. Last year, East Knox beat Mount Gilead 41-0 in that game. Mount Gilead went 0-10 last season. Mount Vernon goes to Lexington this week. Yellow Jackets are 2-1. Lexington 0-3 coming into Week 4. Last year, the Yellow Jackets won that game 15-13 in a close game. Lexington finished 2-8 that season. Cardington-Lincoln goes to Centerburg this week. Centerburg 2-1. Cardington-Lincoln 0-3 to start conference play. Centerburg fell to Cardington-Lincoln last year in that ball game 27-6. And finally, Fredericktown hosts Northmore this week. Northmore 3-0 atop the KMAC as we begin conference play. And Fredericktown sits at 0-3, still searching for that elusive first win. Last year, Northmore beat Fredericktown in this game 41-8. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Knox Pages Game of the Week. Thank you for watching, folks. As always, you can follow our local sports coverage all season long at knoxpages.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Knox Pages for game recaps, features, exclusive interviews, and more. That's at Knox Pages on Facebook and Twitter. Again, thanks for joining us, folks. My name is Grant Pepper, a reporter at knoxpages.com. So long from Tough Street Stadium out here in Danville, Ohio. You've been watching the Knox Pages Game of the Week. Enjoy Week 4, and we'll see you next week.